One, and we are recording with recording with Mr. Joseph Teti. Long time no see.
And
And
what's up, Tom?
so I was obviously I've had you on here before, your book Loan Operator and your nutrition
Yep.
company, all that good stuff. We'll get into it later. I'll put those in the description as always. You've been on here multiple times before. Green Beret and the unit that shall not be named, which is the real life Black Ops shit, which I always love talking about, and you and Dale always implore me not to. But so you know, I've had on, right? I mean, I had on that young kid while he was still at the Kabul airport, right? Right after 13, how many was it? 13 Marines were killed. I've
Yes.
had on Mike Durant, who
Mhm.
even being on Jocko Willink's podcast the other week, still
Right.
started it with like, I don't really like talking about this because it was the worst days of my life, right? But he's running for Senate now, so he's
Right. Right.
he's
Right.
trying to get it more out there. Um, but so there are people that obviously have fascinating stories that I have to, I have friends, obviously like Don the Pleb or someone who, they kind of coach me. They're like, hey, you can't go in there doing the kind of, hey man, what idiots like myself want to ask, right? You sit down with the
Mhm.
president, you're not allowed to ask, are there aliens, right? Even though you want to. But I say all of that to now say, because we're good friends, we've hung out, and I feel like
Oh man.
we've uh we've established some sort of a less serious credibility. I want to be
We
that
are going to
asshole.
talk about my book,
I
Tom.
want
Right?
to I want to be that asshole, and so I'm just going to ask you, man. The Let's get into the taboo. What is it like?
Hey, I'll
What
preface this right now because they're kind of ambushing me. That's okay. I'll
what
answer what I can and what I'm comfortable with. If you're good with
Sure.
that, you
Sure.
all right? All right.
Obviously, and we don't need to upload it if you don't want to. But because we were
Roger.
joking around, I figure I'll walk out on a limb. What is it like? What's it like to kill someone? What was the first time you killed someone?
Oh man. Um.
We don't have to. We can
Yeah,
stick to we can go back.
dude, that's a really
It's not live. I can edit out all this shit.
no. Yeah. Look, that's a and look. It's not the first time somebody's asked me that, but it's an
Sure.
extremely difficult question to ask or to answer because of the situation. And you're asking me about the first time um, that I experienced this. And the fact of the matter is, the first time that this happened, it shouldn't have happened,
Sure.
which sounds really weird. But long story short, it was my first rotation in Afghanistan. Been there about a month, been pretty uneventful. We did a few hits and nothing too crazy. And I ended up getting really sick. I got the flu or some damn thing. And we had been looking for this one dude for a while. We ended up finding where he was. And what was crazy is we were in Kandahar, and the dude that we were looking for was like 20 minutes away. So we ended up locating this guy. And I wasn't firing on all 8 cylinders. I was sick, had a fever. I just was not combat effective. So I said, look, guys, like put me on security or some shit. Like they're like, Roger that. And dude, you got to be smart enough. A good operator knows when to say when. Like it just wasn't up to snuff um, for the assault. So I was put on security, and if I remember, I was on the black red side, which is the far right corner. If you're facing the breach point, it's in the far right. And I was there. It was at night, but I do remember this. There was a lot of loom out. I had my nods up. I do remember that. And there was some ambient light from other structures. But I was there with one of our interpreters and another Afghan asset that we had. And it was a vehicle drop off. Salt Force basically got dropped off and walked up to the building, breached, very uneventful, no shooting, just a little bit of yelling going on. And all was quiet. They got the whole buildings right at the, site secure call, went over the radio. I hear this scratching noise. The wall was like right in front of me, this compound. I was like on the corner, so I could look down one axis and the other. So I was standing like 10 feet away from it, and I hear this scratching noise. And I looked over at my interpreter and I'm like, what the fuck is that? And the next thing I see is this AK-47 come over the wall and literally land butt first like this, boop, and just boop, and falls over. And I'm like, what the fuck? And the next thing I see a dude jump over the wall and he lands, Tom, and I'm telling you, like right on top of it. Like it was at his feet. And as you can imagine, it caught me a little off guard. It's unusual, but there's a whole reason why this happened. So anyway, I remember looking at the gun. I remember looking at him and he was basically hunched over like he was squatting down to take a shit. And I brought my gun up and I went, no, like I was shaking my head. And he looked at me and looked at the gun. And I'll admit this right now. I hesitated. I got lucky because at that point, I had never pulled the trigger on somebody, but he grabbed the gun and I gave him enough time to almost stand up until I actually engaged the guy, which was stupid. As soon as he touched the gun, that was obvious rules of engagement, even for where we came from, where Dale and I came from. And so I hesitated, and that's not something you want to do, but lack of experience, caught off guard, that whole adrenaline dump thing. And so I engaged this dude and, and he literally just fell straight over on the gun. But it was one of those things that, you people ask, what's the first thing that goes through your head? And mine was like, this is going to sound so freaking stupid, but I'm just going to tell you anyway. Like, man, I hope I'm not in trouble. In my mind, sure. I was like, I just fucking killed somebody, and but I knew it was a justified shooting. I mean, and what happened, just to clarify, the dude didn't have a sling on his gun. So he was trying to climb over the wall with the gun in his hand, I'm assuming, and he couldn't. So he threw the gun over the wall. Then he climbed up over it and jumped over, and I just happened to be there. And he was probably, I'm just looking at my house, maybe 30 feet away, something like that, 25 feet away. It was not a hard shot, well illuminated. That's not a big deal. But the first thing that went through my mind is, I hope I'm not in trouble, which I don't know why that would go through somebody's mind, but I guess it's just such an unnatural act. Even being in the unit it was the first time I did it. It's like getting a speeding ticket for the first, like, oh my God, like,
No, I think that's and for everyone listening, Joe's been coming on this podcast for close to 2 years now. I would say we're friends. We've hung out and we've shot. So people listening going, why the fuck did you just It's because I've had on so many guests that I know almost like my own rules of interviewer engagement. I know when, you don't push that. Guys like you and Dale that I've talked to so many times,
right.
You start to move a little closer to that topic. And so even though I prefaced it in sort of I'm going to be that asshole, this is also something that I would never do if whoever, if Mike Durant showed up tomorrow, I wouldn't be like, what's it like to shoot someone with it? So just for everyone listening that's pulling their hair out right now, and and luckily and as everyone knows, this isn't a
and
live.
I'll be honest with you, those that are listening, I'll be honest with you, Tom, I don't even know. I've been asked that question before on a podcast, and I told the guy I wasn't going to answer it. I think it's only because we've known each other for a while and we've met face to face and shot it.
Literally hung out. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like you're some guy that I've never met, and I it's a trust thing. Let's just get down to it. I mean, like you can.
It's also not live. If you said Tom, no, we just nicked
it. Yeah, and it's all good. I mean, dude, here's the deal. I was in one of those units. That's what you did. I mean, that was clearly what we did, like any other special operations unit. In particular, this one, all we did was DA. So sooner or later, you're going to get into a gunfight, right? Like it's going to happen. But it was very surreal, just like you would see on a movie, kind of slow motion. I remember, everybody thinks you're just going to shoot once or twice. I remember I probably shot 5 or 6 times.
Sure.
Just
if you're going to do it, do it.
Yeah, you follow the target down, and so, but yeah, that was the first time. And it was I don't want to speak for anybody else, but that's the most, I don't want to say memorable because that's a terrible,
No, but
there's a
no.
terrible word for saying memory, but that's the one that I reflect on often because that was the one that kind of broke the mold, you know. And what so funny we're talking about this, which I've watched other podcasts with guys talking about stuff like this, and they make it sound so cavalier and everydayish. There's nothing everydayish about shooting somebody.
No.
I don't care what the fuck unit you were in. I could care less. It's there's nothing. You got to take it very serious, and it's a huge responsibility. Shoot, no shoot. That was clearly a shoot situation because guy was picking up his gun and was clearly going to use it on me. So, but yeah, it was. And then I remember over the radio, hearing shots fired, what's going on, that kind of thing. And I told him it's me, where I was, and I made less than maybe a minute later, one of my teammates come running up, as if everything was okay. And I said, yeah, man, this guy came over the wall, and we checked him for intel. He didn't have anything, but the bottom line is that was the first one. And I mean, dude, yeah, I see some of these dudes talk about gunfights all the time. I mean, I think that's an exaggeration. And I don't care what unit, whether you're in a tier 1 unit in the military or the unit Dale and I came from, there's going to be dry holes. Some are going to be uneventful. It's not like every single time you go out, you're getting into a gunfight. That's complete bullshit. Okay. If anybody's saying that, I would probably throw the bullshit flag on them. It happens. It's situational, but it doesn't happen every time. And so anyway, I hope that answered your question.
It's no, and thank you for your candid answer. And but no, it's right. It's the guy in the locker room talking about how much pussy he gets, and it's like, dude, it's like, sure, everyone goes out, maybe you get a girlfriend, maybe you're single, you're going out and philandering,
right?
You don't talk of, sure, it's maybe you have a couple beers and you and your brother are like, yo, dude, she's so, but it's not, it's the guy that always talks about it is the guy who's never seen a boob.
Bullshit. Dude,
it's
and
right.
that's what I tell you. It's like Dale. I don't use Dale as a good example. Dale's very close friends with you and I.
Obviously,
he's the most experienced combat veteran I ever met. He's been in every campaign since Panama.
Yeah.
He never talks about it. Okay, never. Like he even just bullshit talk. We don't talk about it. It's like that was the work. That's what you did. It's like a race car driver saying, "Oh, look how fast I was going."
It's like, no shit. You're in a race car. Yeah, it's like,
exactly. You're in a fucking race car. That's what we did for a living. And so it's just beware of people that talk a lot of smack about that. I just, that's my personal opinion. This may ruffle a few feathers of people watching that who are in special operations that like to have a body count, or like, yeah, I've shot 57 people. Like, how the fuck would you even know that?
Yeah.
And here's how, and let me tell you why I'm saying that actually. So, we got into a tick one time, driving to a target, and we got ambushed, and they were 200-300 yards away. So if you're shooting behind cover, you and I, and we're engaging a target that's 200 or 300 yards away, how the hell do you know who shot the guy? You don't.
Yeah.
One of us did, but the guy drops or he doesn't get back up from the rocks. You don't know. The only time you really know, quite frankly, is if you're a sniper, right? Let's snipers know for sure. Or if you're in a CQB environment where a guy's right in front of you, and sometimes you'll have multiple guys, you're clearing a room, shoot at the same dude. So, you know what I mean? It's
well, that was kind of bring me to my next question is like the personal nature of it. Is it, someone like myself, the idiot who says, what's it like to kill someone? I mean, is it kind of a letdown is the wrong word. Is it kind of a, oh, that's what that is? Is it, is silence that night? Is it just, and it's done, and you go, oh, he was there, now he's not? Is it more personal, like you said, about a sniper, or like the unit you and Dale were in, which there's a great book about it, aside from Lone Operator, is Surprise Kill Vanish by Annie Jacobson. And she kind of talks about how she met someone in that unit and they carried a huge knife. And she said, and he goes, well, sometimes a job requires quiet. or sometimes it's all you have.
Mhm.
Can you speak? Because again, the unit you and Dale were in, you guys were up close and personal. It wasn't, it's not D-Day. It's not,
Right.
charge.
Right.
Would you say that's more personal? And or because I guess we've already kind of broken the taboo seal, have you ever killed someone with a knife or at close or just hands? Something that's more personal and less of a, like you said, something you're not expecting, AK coming over the fence, and it's like, well, am I in trouble? It's a weird thing. Is there something like that that's more personal like that?
Um, to answer your question, I think anything like that's personal. I think anybody, if you know for sure you shot someone, that's personal as it gets, whether it's a terrorist or a bad guy at your house, whatever, it's
Sure.
personal. At least that's the way I look at it. Look, we're human beings. I never wanted to become that guy that was so callous that it just,
Lose your
I think at
humanity.
that point in time, it's time for you to get out of the business because you've dehumanized it to a point where I think you become a very dangerous person. But anyway, that's my opinion. Yeah, it's personal because it's up close. You're in a room or in a compound. Um, I remember uh, one time, and this was actually on my last tour in Afghanistan. I was on a ladder team, and we came up this compound, and guy put the ladder up. He held it. I went up the ladder, looked inside, and I looked right below me, and there was a dude sleeping on a cot. He was on his side, and I could see his AK right next to him. So what do you do? I mean, that's a tough question. The guy's sleeping. He's obviously has a weapon. So what do you do? Say, hey, buddy, wake up,
Wait to
or
see
do
if he
you?
touches it, and
You don't have time.
yeah,
You got assaulters going to breach. I was up there pulling security, and I look over the wall. He actually wasn't right below me. He was over to the right, and he's out like a light because we surreptitiously came up to the compound. Quietly put the ladders. They were all padded, and he was out like a light, sleeping on this wooden cot, and I could clearly see that he had an AK right next to him. I mean, what do you do? I mean, I know it sounds like a really weird
no,
fucking thing, but
uh,
that's the real world. Like there, the dude was like, what do you do?
it's
You shoot
it's
the guy in his sleep, or do you let him wake up from a breaching charge and then you shoot him? I mean,
and
you
yeah,
know,
it is your moment of hesitation. Is that okay? Well, now one of my guys is going home in a body bag, but
right.
thank God I showed some humanity to the
Right. See what
enemy.
I mean? You start, and dude, that happens. And I'm not saying that it would happen with everyone. It happens with me. I mean, you're looking at somebody who's sleeping, and could have
Did
been a good person, just happened to have an AK-47 next to him. You see what I mean? These are the decisions. These are the weird situations you get in that people may or may not talk about. But that was one of mine. And dude, I'm not the most experienced combat guy in the world. I mean, give me a break. Like I did my bit. Everybody's got war stories, Tom. Everybody. You could be in an infantry unit that gets a lot of experience, like Marine infantry units in combat constantly, like in Fallujah. And like the SEAL team guys in Fallujah, they're in combat all the time. And, they got war stories too, you know,
if to not to
but
not to not gloss over it, to go back to the guy, did you shoot him?
yes, I did.
Have you ever had to use a knife?
um,
Where
actually,
where would a knife be
actually,
where would a knife be applicable as opposed to shooting? Once you've made the decision
so
that you're going to
this
kill him.
is this is a story Dale is familiar with because the AAR from this was circulated, from my understanding, to a lot of guys where I used to work because of the situation. Um, to answer your question, yes. Was it planned? No. Um, was it a mistake that I made? Multiple up to that point. So the backstory to this, and this is actually embarrassing, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I'm not perfect. I don't have all the answers, and I fell prey to peer pressure and some other stuff. But anyway, we were commingled with guys from Dev Group, so Team 6 guys, and we went out on a hit with them one night, and I noticed that none of them were carrying pistols. And one of the dudes I became friends with, I went up and I was like, John, freaking, where's your fucking pistol? He's like, yeah, man, fucking, we're just going lighter, just a few mags. And I'm like, all right, I get it. Very streamlined. Their kit was very streamlined, very lightweight, move fast kind of thing. That unit likes to move very quickly, which speed is security. And they're very good at what they do. And there I am standing there with a fucking pistol. Well, I wore it that night. Next day, I took it off. I had a Glock 17 and I took it off my kit because these guys are very experienced. They'd been there. I'm thinking, yeah, that makes sense. Lighter, more maneuverable. The next rate, 2 days later, we go to hit this compound. And this is ironic as it gets. I was on security again on this one. It was a huge compound. It was probably the biggest compound I've ever been involved in. But anyway, I was with a dog team. It was me and a dude with a dog and one other Afghani guy. And they hit the compound, all secure. Again, rather uneventful, not any shooting. I get a call. It's dark outside, have my nods on, and I get a call on the radio like, hey, Joe, we need you with the SSC. They needed me to help out with the sensitive site exploitation. It was bigger than we expected. So they needed as many people inside the compound helping with the SSC. So I told these dudes, I'm like, hey, man, I'm heading inside. Y'all good? Roger that. So I was on the back side of the compound and I was running down. There was about a 5 foot wide dirt path behind this place. And then there was almost like it was a ditch, but it had shit water in it. And there was a big field to the right. And I'm slow jogging and I turned the corner and dude, it was literally like a Three Stooges movie. An Afghani that was probably running at full tilt. Him and I went basically like this, like face to face. Two things happened. When he hit me, my nods smashed me in the face so hard that it made my eyes water. Like, when you get punched in the nose, it was kind of like that. And at the same time, I had a single point sling on with one of those fast tacks that's connected to the M4, but you can take your gun off, but leave the sling around your neck. When I ran into this dude, my fucking gun came off. I remember it hitting my feet. Because when I hit this guy, of course, now you've got this adrenaline dump going on, right? I remember hearing and feeling my gun hit my feet. Well, this dude had an AK in his hand. I remember I had my hands on the gun. We were both wrestling with it. We ended up going on the ground. He was on top of me. His head was here. I don't know how to grapple. I'm not like Dale. I know the basics, but I had my legs wrapped around him and I had his head with my left arm. I distinctly remember going for my pistol.
Oh, Jesus.
Wasn't there, dude. I'm not joking. You can't even make this shit up. This was literally the next fucking mission I went on. I remember feeling down from my piss and just, I remember the feeling of that. You ever had you feel like
dread.
The blood just goes, like, oh shit. And because my gun was on the ground, Ashley didn't even know where the fuck it was at that point because we had rolled around for a bit. I couldn't tell you how long, 10, 15, 20 seconds. Well, anyway, on my belt, I had a battle belt on. On my belt, I had, you ever seen those original buck knives that they came out with? I think they were called the Buck Special or some shit. It was a stainless steel knife with the stainless steel handle, right? Well, my grandfather gave me one when I was in junior high school. It was like a birthday present. And I thought it was the shit. It was my first cool knife, and I took it hunting and everything. Anyway, I took it everywhere. I had it on my kit when I was in junior high school. In high school, I had all my shit, right, playing Army. Well, anyway, I carried it around everywhere. Well, I brought it with me. It was just one of those things that it gave me just a good feeling to have it. I respected my grandfather, the whole bit. Everybody had something like that, whether it was a flag or a picture or a patch or some fucking thing. So I remember reaching down for my knife, and it wasn't where it was. What had happened was is it slid on my belt, and I was laying on it. It was in the small of my back. So this dude's on, and this guy was a lot like, I'm not a big guy. He was much taller than me. He's on top of me, and I'm trying to grab the knife, and it had this weird, you'd have to like Google the knife, but it had this sheath. Instead of it just having Velcro, it had this snap on it. But it was one of those fucking snaps. You know those snaps, Tom, that if you don't pull it just the right way, it don't open? That's the kind of snap it had on it. And I remember trying to put, and I guess just because out of adrenaline, it ended up breaking. I ended up breaking the retention strap on it. Here's what I can tell you from that point forward. It's, again, I remember bits and pieces of it, but I remember stabbing a dude on his left side a couple times in the back. I remember slashing him, right? And this probably went on for, I don't know, maybe a minute or two. I honestly don't know how long it went on. It seemed like it was longer, but as you know, adrenaline makes things kind of drag out. I would say a minute or two, but I distinctly remember feeling him start to go limp because he was on top of me. And there was just a point where I just kind of heard him because his head was right here. Mm-hmm. I just kind of heard him just go, mm-hmm. Like, and it just felt like if you had this like big water bladder on top of you and you just punched a hole in it and it's like, yeah, that was it. Like I knew he was done. And so I rolled him off of me. I looked for my M4. I picked it up and trotted down to where they had entered. And I remember there's a buddy of mine there. His name was Larry. And he looked at me and he's like, medic! He started yelling for a medic. And I'm like, dude, I'm fine. Because I was literally
soaked,
covered in blood from my knees. Like it was in my face. Matter of fact, I had to get a blood test done. The dude had bled in my mouth and in my eyes.
Shit.
So anyway, so after everything was secure, I told him what happened. Everybody was like, dude, this is a very unique situation. Let's go back. Let's check out this dude. So we went back, and let me caveat this. This was in the winter, and this dude had this really thick jacket on. And those of you who've been to Afghanistan, you know what I'm talking about. It's a real thick wool jacket and another layer under there. It was cold as shit outside. So we get there, we roll this guy flat on his back and take off his jacket. And I noticed that none of my slash marks, my slashes, none of them made it down to the skin. Not one. And I'll tell you why here in a minute. I know. And here's the lesson learned, dude. This is where you don't think of this shit until you have to think of this shit. Not a single slash. It had cut through his jacket, but it never made it down because it was thick. It never made it down to his skin. And there was probably 7 or 8 of those. And on his back as well. The puncture, the stab wounds got him. This knife had a 5.5-inch blade. So the blade was about that big. It's a big ass hunting
Sure.
Knife.
Yeah.
It's for fucking hunting. And so we started looking at where the wounds were, and I got him one time right here. So that's where the blood,
sure,
I had blood up on my neck and my face. It didn't sever his carotid artery, but it nicked it for sure.
I mean, if you
yeah, and again, I had to go get tested for hepatitis and all this freaking shit. But anyway, here's the lesson learned. One, should have had my fucking pistol. Fuck peer pressure. I went back, a couple of days later and said, if you can't carry your pistol, go to the gym more, do more reps.
Yeah.
And what are you looking at, a pound for a gun? So then, we looked at the knife, and I'm going to tell you flat ass, dude, you could run your finger on the blade and it wouldn't have cut you. Why? Because I had been using that thing to cut open MREs, cut 550 cord, cut open boxes and shit that we would get, and it was dull as fuck. Dull. When I mean dull, I could go like this, and it probably would have cut my arm. So shame on me, one, for succumbing to peer pressure, one. Two, shame on me for not knowing that my knife wasn't sharp. That's just fucking wrong as it gets. And three, at that point in time, my knife fighting skills were like from 1 to 10 at 2. Like I had basic knowledge of knife fighting, but out this time I wasn't standing, I was on my back. Three, my weapon got behind me. It's the whole, there was a plethora of mistakes I made. Didn't know my knife would shift on my kit, which it did. So all of these little mistakes became a really interesting hot wash at the end of the night. And it was an awful experience. It was not something that I wanted to ever check the block. I just didn't. That's what a fucking gun's for. And if your primary goes down, that's what your secondary is for. And didn't have it. So after that, I always carried a pistol, and I got ribbed every now and then. And I remember one day, a dude from the same unit, dev group guys, was busting my balls about a couple things while I was carrying so much ammo in my pistol. And a friend of mine went over there and was like, "Why don't you go ask him why he's carrying a knife?" And he came over, and I told him. He's like, "Oh fuck." So anyway, yeah. So that was just like one of those things where wasn't prepared. Didn't have the skills. The only thing that saved me, Tom, to be quite honest with you, was just violence of action. Once I started, I just didn't stop.
Yeah, commit.
I had the guy kind of tightly bound up with my arm, and of course, your adrenaline's pumping. My legs are wrapped around, and my arms he ain't going nowhere. But yeah, a lot of mistakes made by me, and that never happened again. And that situation never came up again. But isn't it ironic? The next fucking out of the years that I've spent over there, the next mission that I didn't carry a pistol, I wish I would have had one. And there it is.
Well, it makes me think of a line I think actually you said to me. It might have been fall 2020. I don't think it was even had to do with like war stories. I think we were talking about the podcast or something about like internet cutting out. And I remember you saying it's not everyone knows what can go wrong will go wrong, but you said you look at it as Murphy's law is just teeing up. It's just licking its chops. If you bring everything, it'll leave you alone. It doesn't care.
Yeah. Give him one little inch and he's going to take a mile. Yeah.
And it jumps. I mean, he finds the chink in your armor. I mean, I have multiple lights. I have a backup microphone. I have a cell internet in case this goes down. It kind of, right. I mean, Gothic Serpent, Mogadishu, Black Hawk Down. What do you mean? The famous last words. We don't need our nods. We'll be back.
We don't need night vision. Yeah,
that's
right.
Where most of them were killed.
Dude, so, it's the same exact thing on a much smaller scale, obviously, compared to Black Hawk Down. But it was individual. It was a one-on-one thing.
But it still applies. It's still the small scale, big scale. It's still the same thing. We won't need that, right? So you have that, yeah. And so looking at something like that, yeah. How does that, not to kind of shift it back to the kill with the knife? Does something as personal as that, a guy literally laying on top of you, having his blood on you, does something as personal as that, does that, and maybe it's not the correct word, help or lighten, does that water down shooting someone? Right? The first one, like you said, kind of breaks the seal. Your first time, right? First podcast is the most nervous one. We kill someone with a knife. It's literally, it's there. You're holding them. Like you said, you can almost, symbolically feel the life leaving their body. Does that now, and like you said, and it doesn't make, you don't ever want to lose your humanity. There's nothing natural about killing someone. But does that, for lack of a better term, does that make subsequent kills with a firearm less impactful, less? And again, it's none of them are impactless. None of them, none of them mean nothing. But in relative terms, killing someone with a knife does that make subsequent shots easier?
The first thing that popped into my head when you said that was it just proved to me and elevated how violent combat is. I know that sounds really stupid, but it just showed me this is how dirty it can get. You know what I mean? Like, which is like the last thing you'd want to do is, engage somebody with a knife. But it didn't make things. And again, Tom, I wasn't, freaking Dirty Harry out there just unloading on
Sure.
people. Had a body. That's not what we did. Um, People were engaged and they need to be engaged. And just remember, dead people don't talk. It's always good to capture somebody, get more information, go find another fish that'll get you the bigger fish, right? You engage people that need to be engaged because they're a threat and they need to be threats or neutralized. So I want people to understand that it's not like, we were going and just gunning people down. That's not what we did. That's not what professionals do. You engage, you need to be engaged. But to answer your question, I don't think it made it any easier, any harder. It emphasized this is how nasty, this is what level you can sink to. Let me just put it, this is the level you can sink to if you have to. I never ever, Tom, thought in a million years that I would ever have to use a knife. Like I got a gun, I got guns. And sometimes I had 3 guns. I had a breaching shotgun sometimes, you know. So I had 3 guns: my M4, my HK 416, a Glock 17, the breaching shotgun. What the fuck do I need a knife for, right? I will tell you this: the other thing I learned from it is a lot of guys carry folders. You know, dude, let me tell you something.
A what?
That would have been very difficult. Oh, and by the way, I had gloves on too. That made it hard as well, finding and feeling this button, right? The snap line. So when you start thinking about, I got a folder, and if you got flight gloves on or any kind of, assault gloves, getting that blade employed quickly and out, depending on what position you're in, it's going to be tough, and most folders are only, 3.5 inches long. I had a folder on me, but it was in a pouch, like it was just an accessory. But I always had a decent size fixed blade knife on me, just because, and that knife actually, like I told you, I carried that thing when I was in junior high school. I mean, how ironic it was. But I'm just talking in general. Like, if you're in that line of business and you're carrying a knife, carry a fucking knife.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you're carrying a knife, carry a knife. If you can use it as a weapon, a little 3.5-inch folder, sure, you can slash and stab, but that extra 2 inches on a 5-inch blade is getting the vital organs. And, I remember specifically, I can close my eyes, and I remember seeing this guy's side. All of the blood was very frothy, pink, and bubbly, and it was from his lungs. You know what I mean? Because that's the blood from a lung shot. So I'd punctured his lungs. And so anyway, yeah, man, I don't think it made it any easier, any harder. It just opened my eyes to, like, man, you're in a dirty fucking business. You know what I mean? Which, fine. I knew that and I accepted that. But this is what you have to do. Because think about it. What was I going to do? Grapple with this guy for 20? Fuck that.
Yeah. Tap him out. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on my back and he's on top of me. And he was a bigger dude. Like I said, I'm not a big guy. He was probably 6 foot, 6'1", because when he hit me, I remember I kind of hit him like right below the chin. My nod just pow, like, dude, I remember seeing a little bit of stars too. My eyes were like almost shut from and I looked like a like a raccoon the next day. I had 2 black and blue marks right here. So, but yeah, just a very weird experience. I will tell you this: when I got back from that deployment, I called our schools guy. There was this dude who was in charge of whatever school you wanted to go to, and I said, I want to sign up for every fucking knife fighting course we have. And he basically told me, would find some, and they just reimbursed you.
Yeah.
I'd go, and then so anyway, I went to like 3. After that, I went to 3 knife fighting courses just to get some technique down. You know what I mean? Because I had none.
I've to me that actually, and again, it's almost hilarious that I'm going to compare anything in my life to what you or what Dale's done. But because the vast majority of my audience is probably more similar to me, I mean, statistically 100% more similar to me than they are to you or Dale. But to me, it makes me think of, I'll just go through it really quick, is studying nonstop in college because I wanted to go to medical school. And my logic is it's easier to study, as tiring as it can be, than to when I would work at a bar and I'd be, cleaning bathrooms in a college town till 2 a.m. with, rubber gloves on. And I'll be like, it's easier to study versus, kind of letting my life fall apart after my brother died, moving home with my parents and working at like Chinese delivery places versus, Tom, why do you do so many podcasts? because I know what happens when you get to when the rubber hits the road and you're delivering Chinese food at 3 a.m, hoping for a $2 tip. It's a lot easier, though tiring. It's a lot easier to pound through 3 audiobooks, work out and do podcasts nonstop and post them and try to network and everything. Because although it's struggle, I know if you don't struggle here, I know the
That's
struggle
right.
is a lot worse when you're
That's
working a
right.
night shift at Walmart.
100%.
So it seems like, if anything, the knife showed you like, hey, don't forget, you can be really distant. You can be dropping a bomb from a jet at 5 miles up. You can be a sniper. You can be up close with a gun. You can be closer with a pistol, or you can be there with a knife. Don't forget what the actual action is. It's one
Right.
of you's going home. Yeah,
Right.
might as well train to make it easier. So, and with that, and got you for like another 5 minutes, is so all of these things where, I can quote unquote relate, in that I can maybe draw an analogy through studying or doing podcasting. How does something like that change you, in that, I mean, how is it? Do you hear something like me? You can be candid. Do you hear someone like me talking about, oh, how hard it is to lose my brother to suicide? And is it more of like a, dude, you have no idea what loss is? And I don't take any offense to that. Or
No.
do you maybe have more of an appreciation for civilian life? Do you maybe have more appreciation for your partner, or like taking care of a little kid or going to the gym? Do you have
Right.
more appreciation for like, hey man, grind on a podcast? Hell yeah, that's a lot more fun than going toe to toe with a guy taller than you in the dead of night in winter in Afghanistan. How does that
Well,
change?
first off, yeah, we'll do first off, losing a loved one to suicide is by far, in my opinion, more traumatic than, you know, dealing with something like what I had to do, because that was my job.
Sure.
Like, I knew I wasn't handing out cookies in front of fucking Walmart. Okay. Like, I knew the unit I was in, I knew what they did for a living. It's killer capture bad guys. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
what the
yeah,
fuck
yeah,
we
yeah.
did. So yeah, dude, I think what you experienced is just a little, that's like outside of I've never experienced it and I don't want to experience it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
You know what I mean? Because that's very traumatic. Because it's like when somebody gets killed in combat. Like, you hear somebody so and so got killed, and you're like, oh fuck. But again, it's sad. But are you that shocked? Well, again, you're not handing out cookies in front of Walmart. People die doing this shit,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
And
Let me reword that then, because okay, yeah, losing someone, that is a little more maybe of an abstract relationship. Let's take it to something that you and Dale did and quote unquote water it down. If you see a cop shooting someone, do you does your experience make you more empathetic to them? Like, I get it, it's your job, I get it. Or is it less empathetic, where you're like, dude, you're in a squad car with a partner in downtown, Milwaukee, versus taking a knife to someone in the dead of night in winter in Afghanistan?
um, I think if I heard, matter of fact, there was a cop around here not long ago shot and killed somebody, totally justified.
Sure.
So if it's a justified shooting, then the guy was doing what he had to do. Like you just said, somebody's going home and somebody's not going home.
Yeah.
And he's a law enforcement officer. That was his duty. He engaged a threat to neutralize it. Unfortunately, the guy passed away. I think here's where I think the problem comes in. And again, I'm not a psychologist, bro. I don't know shit about psychology, but I think this is where the problem comes in, is when you're in a unit, not so much law enforcement, because they're not going out and actively engaging. Yeah, that just happens. We were actively kind of like going looking for trouble, right? It's like you go look for trouble, you're going to find it, right? I think what happens is if you're in that type of business for too long, and I've watched other podcasts of some of these guys that I don't need to mention their names, but there's special ops units where they were in for years and years, and multiple tours in Afghanistan, multiple tours in Iraq, done 1,000 missions, like crazy shit. Um, I think there's a point in time where how could it not affect you?
Yeah.
Right. I remember one time I deployed to Afghanistan and I came back, and that the day I landed at the airport, I drove, so I got picked up and I said, take me to the grocery store. And I remember I was in food line pushing a cart around, and I was just thinking 2 days ago, if people only knew what I was doing, they'd be like, like that's when it becomes an issue, when you can't detach from it. And I am very lucky that I never got to that point. I never got to the point where it created problems, because you hear guys, man, I started drinking too much, and I got hooked on these pills and these painkillers, and dude, I get it. And for people that watch these other podcasts and go, oh my God, you start drinking, you don't know what these guys have been through to just separate themselves from those demons, right? I never got to that point, whether you want to call it a lack of experience or lack of pulling the trigger, whatever the case may be. And I'm glad. I don't deal with that shit. I don't have to. I've got friends, and they'll tell you, we've got friends that suffer from PTSD badly. And I just never got to that point. And I also think it has to do with your coping mechanisms too. Like you've got big time coping mechanisms that will help you deal with stress. The loss of your brother.
Sure.
Same with me growing up, my parents getting divorced, my mom getting killed in high school. I mean, all these coping mechanisms that you have when you're younger, as you get older, helps you deal with more bullshit. So even though it sucks that you experienced what you did, it's actually going to serve you well as you get older, because it served me well. Same with Dale. Dale wasn't born with a fucking silver spoon in his fucking mouth. He's dealt with a lot of bullshit and family bullshit and people bullshit, and it just helps you deal with that kind of, just like when our friend Mike was killed, that helicopter crash. I remember it like yesterday, and I can close my eyes. There was no screaming, there was no yelling, there was no crying. I just walked up and saw Dale, and I said, "Give me a sit rep," and very calmly he just said, "Dude, they're all dead." Like literally that matter of factly. He wasn't emotional. He was just business.
Yeah.
And if you would have seen what we saw that night, not you, but an average person would have seen the horrificness of a helicopter crash and what it did to 3 human beings, including a very dear friend of ours, standing there looking down at him. That would really put the screws to a lot of people, but only because Dale had dealt with death and all that shit, and same with me over the years. That's probably the only thing that saved me from being batshit crazy right now. You know what I mean? But that's a very good analogy and an example of just, there wasn't anything. It was just, the funny thing I tell people about that is this, after a crash or a major event is the dead silence.
Yeah.
I just remember hearing the wind blowing.
Yeah.
And here we are in this horrific helicopter crash with 3 dead people that were severely injured. One being, 20-year friend of mine and friend of Dale's. And so, but I think that's the answer to your question. I got out at the right time. You know what I mean? I knew it was time for me. I'd gone to a few funerals, and the one funeral I went to, the guy I worked with was killed in an IED attack. I went to his funeral, and his little boy came up to me. He's probably 6 years old, and he just looked at me and said, "Where's my dad?" And dude, that was it. Like, I'm like, it's kind of like a drug addict hitting bottom.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to do this no more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I just didn't have it in me. And when you're in a unit like that, when you don't have it up here, even though I could physically do it, I didn't have it up here anymore. I was kind of detached from it. It was time to say enough is enough. You know what I mean? And call me what, you pussy, you left, well, whatever. I did my duty. I knew it was time for me to go. I didn't feel like I was an asset anymore, which you want to feel like an asset, not like a liability. You don't want to be that weak link, because if you're the weak link on that type of work, chances are you're gonna get somebody else hurt or killed. You know what I mean? And that was it. That was the end of it. And
yeah, it's, well, not to end abruptly, but
yeah.
I know you got to run. I genuinely do. I appreciate your candid answers. I know we really didn't get into the book or the fitness supplements or the wet seat course, but we will do another. You can go back to previous episodes with Teti and myself. Just search Teti, Teti, in my podcast archives. You can find them. I'll put your Twitter, your Instagram, your link to Amazon for Lone Operator, which is a great
nutrition.
book. Absolutely cute. And Wetsy and training course. Everything Joe Teti will be in the description.
What number of podcasts you on, bro? I meant to ask you that the other day.
You are 663.
Get the for real?
Fucking work my tits off, dude.
Damn, dude.
You were and your first appearance was episode 70.
Dude, who was the first guy you interviewed? Who was the very first dude you did?
Literally a friend I just convinced to come on. Just like a friend.
Like get some practice.
Just so I had guest one, so I could lie to guest two. It's
663. Wow, bro.
Yeah, man.
That's great. And how long have you been doing this for?
December 12th, 2019. So actually today's January 12th. So we're coming up on 25 months today.
Dude, that's a lot.
Yeah.
You're doing multiple podcasts a day, I assume, right?
Yeah.
And some days.
Yeah.
Some days.
Yeah. Today's 3.
Wow.
Yeah. Tomorrow's 2. Yesterday was 3. But like we talked about, when you know other pains,
right.
Going face down with my brother and drugs and realizing the rubber hits the road. Right. Things like doing 3 podcasts a day, you're like, yeah, fuck it, let's do it. Yeah, sure. You're like, what? 3? Yeah, I don't care.
It puts things in perspective. That's the best way to say it. It clarifies and quantifies your life when you can look back and go, yeah, I dealt with that bullshit. I can definitely deal with this. You know what I mean?
It's perfectly. Yeah. So it's, how do you do 6? I don't even think about it. I'm like, yes. What else am I going to do? Like I've done.
Well, dude, plus you love what you do, by the way. That's the other thing. You enjoy this. This isn't something you're forced to do. You do this because you like doing it. And that you got the world by the short hairs.
I love it.
Yeah, I know.
Dude,
you get to talk guys like Mike Durant. I'd love to talk to that guy for 5 minutes. I bet that was a cool podcast.
If I could maybe put you in touch if you want, but
it's a great story, and he's a badass dude. So yeah, you've had some really cool people on, and you're just going to continue to grow. I mean, there's
I appreciate it, brother.
You know,
well, thank you for coming on and helping and providing me with content. Joe
Teti,
as always, I love you, brother.
Thanks,
Joe and
Tom. Love you too, man.
Joe and I, we're not afraid to say it. We love each other. There's nothing wrong with expressing love.
Hell no.
I love you, brother. God bless America. Stay safe. All your links in the description. Joe Teti.